Are you in LA, SF?
No, I'm in New York.
New York?
Yeah.
Okay. My
All right,
husband and
we
I,
are live.
we just moved back from New York to LA just a few months ago, so I'm missing it a lot.
I know. It's hard to leave. Um, well, we're live, so everyone who's tuning in, thank you for joining us on a Thursday morning, afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Rebecca Minkoff. I'm the co-founder of Female Founder Collective. And before we jump into this amazing conversation we are so lucky to have with Mallory, I wanted to plug a couple things. If you're building a tech company, our applications are officially open for the 10th House Tech Cohort. It's built specifically for women across AI, SaaS, fintech, health tech, consumer tech, marketplaces, and emerging technologies. Before you think this is just a kumbaya group, once you join us, you start with your founder's operating manual, which is a 6-week accelerator designed to help strengthen your operating system, bulletproof your numbers, and build a focused marketing plan for your next stage of growth. And then from there, you're going to move on to industry-specific tech cohort alongside founders and operators building and scaling in tech. And if I might brag about our programming, we get the best of the best. An example is today, my conversation with Mallory. But imagine if you could have her in an intimate setting and ask her things that are going to take your business forward. That's what we strive to do for you. So as a thank you, we're going to give you guys 10% off. Just use the code GTM10 at checkout, and that's good through Sunday the 28th. Hopefully we'll see you guys all on the cohort. And then last thing, we noticed that a lot of you want deeper and more impactful time in addition to joining the 10th house. So that is why we started the North. So if you want one-to-one mentorship or advising quickly, you can actually just find a great person on findyournorth.co. It has everyone from builders to founders to post-exited people to PE firms, VCs. Mallory's our recent addition. And so I encourage you to check out that and see who you might never knew you needed to talk to. And now I'm going to get into introductions. Mallory is an amazing leader. She leads go-to-market at Lovable. She's also the founder of the Old Girls Club. Oops, sorry. That was my alarm to get on my computer if I hadn't yet. A global community of women and non-binary people in their 30s and 40s across tech, media, and venture capital. She writes good work on Substack. You need to subscribe immediately. And previously led community and growth teams at Mercury, Maven, Cameo, and Pinterest, building programs that connected founders, builders, leaders, creators, and operators at scale. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So one of the questions which we've sourced, I think we got several hundred questions from our audiences.
Oh my goodness.
I know it was hard to like narrow them down. You've built community and growth programs at Pinterest, Cameo, Maven, Mercury, and now Lovable. What is the single biggest shift you've seen in how tech companies actually acquire customers over the last 5 years?
Yeah, such a good question. I have been doing this now for over 15 years, and I think this shift has been happening, and it's been so interesting to watch it happen over that time. But really, trust in brands and people looks so different now. And so go-to-market acquisition, it's so based on people understanding who it is that is trying to acquire them. I think we as a population, as the world, have gotten a lot more knowledgeable about how businesses are built and the technology behind them and how our data is used and all of those sorts of things. And so people have much higher standards for what they are willing to engage with or how they want to show up in the world. And so we see that with people leaning into more brands that are focused on social good or leaning into brands that are more founder and human-led. And so I think that shift away from really being able to run the traditional playbook of like identify your ICP, run the paid acquisition channels, build out your lifecycle plan, optimize that funnel, like it works. That's still sort of the fundamental truth, but there's a new layer on top of it, which is this kind of like trust layer that is so rooted in psychology and in how people really evaluate the world around them.
So I'd love to get deeper into that because as you were talking, I was like, yeah, that's what we want to do, but we know about this under layer of trust and optimizing the funnel. So can you break that down, especially if it's a DTC brand and maybe not every founder wants to be the face or be the person that establishes the trust with the customer?
Yeah. You definitely see a lot about founder-led brands, founder-led go-to-market now, that kind of thing. And I always like to differentiate between founder-led and like influencer-led. I think there is a lot of, anybody who doesn't know me, I test like 87% introvert. I am terrified of the idea of showing up on the internet. The idea of being a quote unquote influencer makes me feel nauseous. And so I really do like to give people that differentiation, because being founder-led doesn't have to mean being an influencer. And so what I mean when I say founder-led is helping people understand the humans behind the brand, giving them an access point to that. That access point doesn't have to be constant sort of like full transparency into your entire life, right? It doesn't mean that you have to create content every day. It doesn't mean that you have to tell them about your personal life and your relationships and things like that. But you do need to allow them into your world in terms of why you're doing what you're doing, how you're doing what you're doing, and like what their role is in that from your perspective. So I think writing is a great way to do that. I think doing work in terms of really writing that kind of like brand statement or mission statement or manifesto, whatever you want to call it, on your website can be really helpful. Like Everlane was one of the first, Everlane's had kind of an interesting past couple months, but they were one of the early ones in like real transparency into the how of like how the things are being created and that kind of thing. So pulling all those pieces together can be really helpful.
Yeah, it was interesting. Many, many years ago, I did this trial and I did the 24/7 everything. And while people enjoyed the reality show of seeing my kids misbehave at a restaurant or whatever, like at the end of the day, like if that doesn't translate back to the brand somehow, it doesn't matter that you got triple the views, and I think that some people feel forced to show every aspect of their lives, but now we've really looked at it as like, what are the most important things that align to the brand pillars? And no, she doesn't need to see my kid having a tantrum to want to buy a bag, and so I think that a founder learning that what you just outlined is really valuable, because it takes a lot of the pressure off of, I have to showcase and invade my own privacy and get into places where I'm not comfortable.
Yeah, I think there's a breadth versus depth conversation as well there around reach doesn't necessarily mean what you want it to mean in terms of conversion and customer acquisition and things like that. I know a lot of people who have very large audiences, but can't convert them in the same way that someone with just a few thousand really excited followers, about their mission and about what they care about. So I think understanding that there are those trade-offs can help too.
100%. So you've had your own experience with growing something from scratch when you started Old Girls Club.
Yeah.
So what did that teach you personally going through go-to-market and growing?
Yeah. So the Old Girls Club has been my like personal project for 4 years now, and it's been the most amazing sandbox to play in. And really, because for anyone who doesn't know, I've always had a W-2 like day job while I've run OGC. And what it's allowed me to do is have this playground and this space for experimentation and learning in public, and really bringing other people along for the ride. And this idea of, hey, we as a like group are understanding what good community looks like, what good membership looks like, what good value exchange looks like. And it's given me this place to sort of get things wrong and own those and have the conversation and understand. And so for me, I think the biggest takeaway has been a couple things. One is that I've been very lucky to be able to do slow and steady growth with OGC, where I wasn't beholden to an investor or anybody else. I am a solo founder. And so I've been able to kind of take it at my own pace of understanding, am I learning what I need to learn? Am I making the decisions at the right rate for the people in the space, for the people in the community, for my customers? And so I do think there's a learning there around being able to own and manage the rate of growth that you're pushing for, and like how you're setting goals. The second one is really that co-building and learning in public takeaway, where I think most OGC members stuck around, especially in the early days when it was like nothing compared to what it is now, because they felt like they were a part of growing something together with me. And I think going back to that kind of founder-led point, that to me, I was not doing the influencer model, but I was doing the founder-led model, in that I was showing up, asking questions, sharing my perspective, but also asking for input. and helping people to feel like, hey, I'm aligned with like how this person is building this thing. And therefore, like, not everything's going to be perfect, but I'm going to stick around to see what happens and kind of like help it become what I hope it will become.
Right. So when this wasn't a question on here, but as you're talking, I'm thinking about, so with Female Founder Collective, you know, the biggest part of the value proposition outside of our programming is the community in itself.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about a brand, you know, every brand is build a community, build a community. Okay, so we have a broadcast channel. We invite consumers to some of our events. If, you know, we survey them, we ask them questions. But sometimes it feels, and I'm just being honest, that the community is very passive and you have to work very hard to get the dialogue to go. So what would you tell founders like who have a CPG brand or something that the community isn't the main product? Like, how do you build an active, rabid community?
Yeah. There's a few questions in there, but I think one of the ones I'll pull out is that community is not, it's a strategy. It's not a thing. And so I think a lot of companies think, okay, if I want to have a community-led growth motion, I have to have a community, a gathering space where people are synchronously together in a place. And the reality is that is so hard and resource heavy to moderate, to keep active. And honestly, a dead community sucks. And like, that's worse than having no community, in my opinion. And so I always encourage founders to think about community as more of a concept than a thing. Okay. And to me, community is shared identity. Community is the desire to wear a brand, whether that's like literally or figuratively, to signal something about yourself. And so I think the brands that do a really amazing job building a community-led growth motion are the ones that are really good at making it clear what they stand for. And then that makes their users want to go out and like build community around themselves with that shared interest. I have two examples that I like to use a lot. Neither are tech, which I don't know if that's helpful, but one is Harley Davidson and the other is Patagonia. I think both of those brands, it is so baked into who they are, what they stand for. And so their users or their customers love to wear their logo, right? They'll pay extra to wear that logo to say something about themselves to the people around them. Right. And so I think that can come in all sorts of forms. You can do some really great UGC type of stuff. You can do some really great recognition and giving them badges and opportunities to share that they're part of something. But that's really what community is, more so than that physical space where people are gathering.
I think that's so helpful because sometimes I even imagine it's like everyone's sitting there like we're a community, but it's really more in the just identifying, like, you know, if I love a designer, doesn't matter if she's having a good or a bad season, I'll keep going because I love what she stands for. And exactly, even though she's never talked to me or held an Instagram live or a Zoom, right?
Right. But you feel like you are part of their community. And I also like to think back to the early Glossier days with the pink pouch. How they did that, and girls would see each other in the line at airports because they were all using them as their clear bags, and they'd be like, oh my God, I love Glossier too. Like your example with that designer, you're excited when you see someone else wearing that designer because it means you share something in common, right? And that makes you want to be friends or like talk to each other. And that, I think, is the essence of community, more so than this thing that you're supposed to create and maintain and ask for people's time with.
Right. Like we're all not going on cool girl walks at the same time.
Not at the same time. No. We could though. We could.
So for those who are just starting out, obviously budget is a huge consideration. So what would you say a good scrappy but effective like 90-day go-to-market strategy look like for an early stage tech founder with no audience and no budget?
My favorite. I actually love this conversation because I think community-led growth can be one of the cheapest and most cost-efficient ways to go to market. I think paid has become and even content has become, as much as AI has democratized and sort of made it more accessible to create really amazing content, it's still very resource heavy from an investment perspective. But community, if you do it right, becomes this really incredible compounding sort of exponential curve effect for sort of the same. You can sort of spend this, but you see this effect. And so for new founders, I think it's one of the best investments that you can make. So let's see. I would say that a good plan for the first, you said 90 days?
Yeah.
Okay. So first 30 days, I think I would, the first thing you want to focus on is finding either your current or future super users or champions. Like, how can you go out and find people that are going to be really excited to talk about what it is that you're building? So sometimes that involves looking for signal on social. Sometimes if you already have users, you can kind of pull them out of the data, whatever it might be, and then you go talk to those people. And you really figure out like, what is it that they are like, what is it that I can solve for them that they want to talk about? So it's beyond features. It's more, and this everybody knows, it has to be about solving a problem and really like giving them something exciting to talk about. So that first 30 days, I'd probably spend having those conversations, use an AI note taker to help you find all the patterns between them. And like really pull out, okay, what these are like the big things that are coming up that people really lean in on. And I think a mistake people make here is they stop at kind of too surface of it, like keep asking questions, keep digging, and try to get that like emotional response from people, because that emotion is what's going to really sort of like superpower the rest of the process. And then I think the second thing I would do maybe in the next 30 days is, once you've kind of found, say you talked to 80 people and there's 10 of them that you were like, these are my people, like these are the people that are going to be really stoked, get them using your product and get some success stories, get some case studies, get some testimonials, get some like human-led stories of why this thing that you're making is solving this problem that they feel really passionately about. And then I think in that final, I'm on the third 30 days now, I think. In the third 30 days, then you have to start trying to find that pattern of like, okay, we've got these people, they're using the product, we have the stories. How do we start to get that out there so that we can start to compound on them? So how do we get them to share those stories, or how do we share those stories in communities of people like those people to go find more and more of those champions? And again, I think the key is really just listening and finding those really emotional points where you can show up for them, even if that wasn't quite your original plan. Like, I'm sure you've all heard the phrase like, marry the problem, not the solution. And so if you are like really excited about the problem and your early solution is like 80% of the way there, be willing to shift that 20 to get that real excitement from the people that you're working with early on.
I think that's really important. And it's nice that you broke it out into chunks, because I feel like I'm sure you could even feed all that into AI and have a very handy checklist of everything you have to do to make it bite-sizable.
I love a 30-day sprint. I think like the world is so crazy and our brains really can't. I love a chunk. I love a week into a 30-day sprint, into like a 3-month sprint, into a 6-month sprint.
Totally. So we touched on it a little bit about not every founder has to be the face or show everything about their lives. And I feel like notably CPG founders probably feel more pressure than, let's say, a founder in tech. So for someone to stand out if they have a tech product on social media, is there a specific platform that founders should prioritize?
I think that founders should show up in the place that feels, as someone who's tried to force myself into, for example, short form video for a long time and have never been able to do it like emotionally. I think that the key, I mean, being a founder is so hard, and being the key is really to find your strengths and run at them and do the things that you're able to show up for extra without burning yourself out. And so I'm hesitant to say, oh, this platform or that platform, because I think some founders are really drawn to writing. Some founders are really love short form video. And I have friends who just fire off 10 videos a day and it's nothing and they love it. That's not me, but it's them and it works great. Some founders really love super produced video where they get to put their craft and their art into it, but they do it, fewer than maybe the person who's doing the 30-second videos. And so I would really say, thinking about this is where you have to like throw the playbook out a little bit, or not feel beholden to a playbook, and really look inward and think, okay, where am I going to resonate with the people I'm trying to resonate with? So my instinct is like, okay, LinkedIn, if you're building a platform that's especially B2B, like a lot of your customers are there, versus if it's consumer, TikTok and Instagram has a little bit more of a direct line, but like I can make the flip argument as well. And so I think it's so much more powerful for you to show up in a way that is uniquely sort of effervescent. And like you're never going to be uniquely effervescent on a platform that you hate. So my recommendation is to follow that like pull and listen to the times when your body is like, nope, this isn't for me.
Yeah, that's why I don't go on Snapchat. That's why there is no brand presence there. But I do appreciate, and I feel like sometimes a founder can have the pressure of like, I have to be on all the platforms at once. And eventually you should, but like what I've seen work is like do one thing, do it well, master it, then move on to the next, figure out that because each one's different before you feel overwhelmed with, I have to post everything all the time everywhere.
Yeah.
Because each one has its own animal and requires its own space. Like I'm trying to figure out YouTube right now, have not conquered it, you know? So I'm trying to go deep as much as I can in seeing if that's a place where I'll win. And I'm interested in your thoughts. Like if it's not going to work after 6-9 months, like I'm out.
Yeah. I mean, your time is so valuable, and not only your time, but your energy. I'm like I'm the daughter of a doctor and an artist. So I'm like as much data as I am woo woo and like listen to the universe. And so I feel very strongly about like you can get so much more done in 24 hours if you're doing things that you feel really energized by. And I think I just don't think there's a requirement to be on multiple platforms ever if you don't need to be. Like there are so many people on every platform. And so I love experimentation, and I think experimentation is so important. But I also think if it's that experimentation is draining you and pulling you away from the things that you are going to be exceptional at, it's not worth that cost.
Totally. So what would you say to someone who's trying to create that word of mouth, which it's not very easily something you can create? Mm-hmm. But if there is a tip for that, what would it be?
Yeah, I think, man, the world of social has changed so much in the last 5 years. And I actually try to get people to think about it more, maybe like we thought about it 5 or 10 years ago, where you don't have to have everybody like virally stoked about what you're doing. You can get you're looking for X number of customers, especially as founders, and those customers can come from anywhere. And so I think instead of thinking about word of mouth as being equal to viral, I think thinking about word of mouth as like, if you can literally imagine it happening in the real world, like someone going home and calling their best friend about something and saying, oh my gosh, I like tried this thing today and it really solved this problem for me. It made me feel really good, whatever. Like, what would cause them to do that? And so I think thinking about like, I always try to pull people out into like real world scenarios to work backwards from. Another common one is like, if you are bringing people into a space as a brand or as a community or whatever it is, like imagine you're inviting them into your home in the real world. Like, what do you do to be a good host, right? You don't just throw them in and like say Godspeed, like you host. And so I think rooting ourselves in those real world examples can be really, really helpful here. And so when we're thinking about creating word of mouth, if I want someone to go tell somebody else about something I'm doing or something I've made, like what's going to make them feel inclined to do that, right? Like I'm asking for really valuable social capital from them in that case. I'm asking them to go to people that they respect. I mean, I can barely remember to text my friends as it is. Like we're asking them to go beyond that and tell them proactively about something that they used. And it really does have to make them feel something in order to do that. And they need a reason to tell somebody else about it, whether it's that it'll add to their experience by bringing somebody else in with them, or they're going to feel like the cool person being like, oh my God, I discovered this new thing. Like it's going to make your life so much easier, right? If we think about that exchange of social capital, we can kind of work backwards to what's required from us to make that happen.
Makes sense. So with AI changing everything, I feel like probably a lot of brand founders, if you're just starting out in tech, you're lucky. You didn't go raise, hundreds of millions of dollars in something that now like Chat or Lovable can do for you. Mm-hmm. AI is completely changing how brands go to market. So for a founder who's building right now or competing against it, What should they understand? And I'm going to give an example. I won't name the company, but I watched this beautiful AI analytics company for retail specifically, the most amazing dashboard and interface, like Claude replaced her, so all the time, effort, money, you can just do Claude co-work and it does what she did.
Sure.
And so how do you as a founder hedge against 1, 2, 3 companies taking away what you want to do, but also be smart about how you integrate it yourself to stay ahead?
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Most features can be built by anybody now. It's being inside of Lovable now and seeing how, because we built most of Lovable on Lovable, if that makes sense. Like, we use it internally for all of our dashboards and all of our internal tools. And so I've really got a front seat to how much all of these platforms can do. And so it can no longer, your moat is not your features anymore. Somebody can drop your landing page in to AI and be like, just make this and it'll do it. And so now the moat really is about human emotion, human connection, identity signaling, what it means for you to attach yourself as a consumer to a brand, and what you're willing to pay for versus, it's sort of this buy versus build idea. And so I think there is so much value still in working with brands for certain things because of a number of things. Maybe you take care of a lot of the stuff that people don't want to take care on by themselves, things like security, things like legal, things like overarching sort of like contextual knowledge about the space. Maybe it's that people want to be seen as associated with your brand because that says that they are trusted in some capacity or that they've gone through some application flow to be attached to your brand or recognized by your brand. And so the difference really becomes not features, but brand and community. And so this is where we get back to this sort of like brand-led, founder-led world where you're building, Rebecca, you've done this amazingly. The best brands in the world now are building these ecosystems and these worlds that people want to be a part of because it's the sum is greater than the parts, right? Like it's more meaningful to be part of this world than to just build it yourself.
Makes sense. So would you say this is an example from someone attending today? She's building a wellness platform, has no audience, and she has 3 months to get her first 100 paying customers and retain them. What would your advice be outside of the 90 days you kind of gave us?
My first question would be, what kind of wellness? I think wellness is very, very broad. And the more specific, and I think this is where like the us versus AI world comes in, is the more like niche and weird and specific you can be. Like, one quick aside before I answer this question, I think I want to remind everybody that what AI does is it takes very large groups of data and it summarizes it into the lowest common denominator because it creates what is most likely to be the correct answer. And so the more you can live in these like 5% fringe areas of that bell curve of information, the more different you're going to be than everything created by AI. And so, for example, if you put in wellness brand AI, you're going to get a generalized wellness brand. But if you have a really specific perspective from a really specific experience that you went through, for example, I went through having cancer. AI can't take that away from me. I had the human experience of having Burkitt's lymphoma when I was 25. And I am able to tell stories about that AI is never going to, because then it would combine me with everybody else who has gone through that. And so this person who's building a wellness brand, I would really encourage them to tell their story, get really specific into why they feel passionately about creating this very specific thing, and create the language so that the people that are going to resonate with that are going to be able to find it, because there's a million wellness brands out there. But SEO is our friend here, right? Like, the more specific your language is and your copy on your site and how you talk about what you're doing, the higher your SEO is going to be for the people who are looking for that very specific thing. And I think sometimes people forget how many people there are in the world and on the internet. Like, the nichest of niches, like, have thousands and thousands of people that really care about them. And so, if you're for everyone, you're for no one. And I think that we really need to lean into that more and more as we're thinking about differentiating ourselves.
Yeah, when you were talking right then, I was thinking about Reddit. I was like, there's a lot of niche communities on Reddit, and apparently that's where all the data is derived from, which scares the shit out of me. But oops, sorry, I shouldn't have said the bad word.
It's okay.
But it's kind of wild how niche it can get.
Yeah, 100%. And that's where I think Reddit's a great research tool, right? Really diving into those subreddits and like finding those communities that need something that are if they're on Reddit, it means they don't have somewhere else to go, because Reddit is not the world's like comfiest place to hang out, right? And so there are so many things there that you could, dig into and figure out if there's a business there or if there's a problem that you could solve for people. So I think that would be my main thing. And then really just doing some customer interviews and building a very specific solution rather than trying to tackle the wellness industry as a whole.
Yeah. And wise words, because when I joined Reddit, people thought I was trying to sell on there, which you can't do. And I was like, I'm just here to talk and go back and forth. And I wasn't believed, and I think I'm banned, but whatever. So just be careful if you do join Reddit. That
Reddit for brands is that's a whole other conversation. Really? It's very, very challenging.
It's very challenging, which is silly. So just beware if you're tuning in. Okay, we only have about 8 minutes left. So I have a couple of rapid fire.
Okay.
What is the most overrated go-to-market channel right now?
I think like generic founder-led content on TikTok, like the life of a founder, but it's like getting matcha and having a meeting.
And doing the what is it? The unwrapping, when you're unwrapping. I'm like, who has time to unwrap? Okay.
The de-shedding or I can't remember.
The morning shed. I'm like, who has time?
I'm rolling out of bed and
I'm barely getting my coffee. Yeah. Most underrated one.
I don't know if this is underrated, but like small rooms, like getting small groups of people to connect around your mission, whether that be over a dinner, over a virtual conversation, over a coffee, whatever it might be, like really investing in those small. I think people worry that when something is small, it's not important. And the reality is those small rooms can really be much more informative.
Agreed. So community or content, if you could only pick one to start with?
I think content, because it allows you to learn more quickly and do more have more clarity around what you're testing for. So you can like really clearly change your language and test headlines and test hooks and test perspectives and like see what people resonate with. That's how I used LinkedIn for my first couple of years. That's where I've built most of my audience. And I love that I can really get like very quick resonant feedback of either, and it's like very rarely do I get bad feedback. It's just either people care or they don't about what I've posted. And it's like pretty immediate.
Yeah. Okay. So founder-led brand, yes or no for every early stage company?
Yes, but again, it can look very different for different brands and different people. And I really recommend the authentic version of like the founder showing up in the way that is most natural to them. But if you are going to found a company, you do have to explain why you're founding it and what the mission and sort of the why behind it is.
Okay. This is one for me that I believe in, but I find it hard to do. Founders building in public. So I was, as we launched several licensees, I was like, we're going to build everything in public, but like you forget, you don't get the camera out. You're like, oh my God, this part can't be repeated or this can't be shown. And it can be incredibly like more of a pain than presence. So what's your thoughts on that?
I'd probably change building in public to learning in public. I think that even if you're not capturing, in fact, I don't think the real-time content is actually as interesting as sort of the real-time reflections, because it's so, you can add the context when you're reflecting a little bit. Whereas in the moment, it's kind of just like, here's this thing. And people are like, why am I looking at this? So I think the learning in public piece allows you to bring people along for the ride, but you can do it on your own time where you're not sacrificing your focus the rest of the day in terms of like meetings and actually getting stuff done.
That really helps me because I was so tired of like, oh wait, guys, we got to get the camera out to capture this moment.
And then it makes it weird. And then the moment's weird. So anytime you see somebody building in public, you're seeing the fourth take of like what they did. And so it's really not real anyway.
Right. One metric that actually tells you community is working.
Referrals. I preach this all day. Like if you are building and again, this is about community as a product, but also I think really community as a strategy. If you hear that people are coming in because their friend, their coworker, their mom, their dad, their whoever told them about this thing, that's when you know you've started to unlock that kind of like emotional piece that's going to get people to pull people in with them.
Love that. Okay, newsletter must have or nice to have?
Oh man, we've been in such a newsletter heyday, and I feel like we're kind of on the other side of it a little bit now.
I don't know if I agree with you yet. I feel like another announcement is being made about someone launching a Substack.
Yeah, I know. I do think a Substack is a little different than a newsletter, though. I guess I think about them in different ways. For example, I think a Substack can be a like updates newsletter, but it can also be kind of a founder-led build in public. Like I think that newsletters are helpful if you have a real reason to be showing up in people's inbox on a regular basis. But otherwise, I'm big on like people really respect being respected. And so a newsletter just for the sake of a newsletter isn't helpful, but a newsletter because people want updates on a specific cadence from you, very helpful. So I think just understanding if there's a real purpose to it and whether people like, if you're not getting notes back from your newsletter being like, oh, I love this newsletter, then like you maybe should make it less frequent or deprioritize it.
Yes, the feedback is critical because then you're like, is anyone even reading this?
And it's different from like, I want to be clear, like email marketing, I think is different than a newsletter too. Like transactional email newsletter or email marketing or product updates, things like that I'm categorizing differently from like thought piece newsletter, you know?
Yep. Okay, so last question before we wrap. Your biggest go-to-market mistake that you see founders make?
I think focusing on scale as a signal, focusing on number of followers, focusing on site traffic, optics in general. I think those numbers can really be misdirective. And I think that they can be really distracting from really is something working, is something catching on, you know, having 100 customers who really love what you're doing is in many ways going to make you more money and going to be more valuable than having 10,000 people who are maybe follow you, but they scroll past you in your feed. So I think any of those kind of those sort of optics metrics can be really distracting.
I feel like it's hard to get off the Kool-Aid because for so many years it was the followers, it was all these things, and then Instagram is like, today we're going to change it. So
it also feels good, you know, like they're called vanity metrics for a reason. It feels good to have the numbers go up and to the right, and so I think that's where we have to understand our own dopamine, our own serotonin, our own like why are we chasing the things that we're chasing, and does that align with the actual outcomes that we want and need for our business?
Yeah, I mean, recently I discovered a whole world of little micro influencers who might have 10,000 followers, but each one of their reels has millions of views. And you're like, the numbers don't make sense, but they're having a huge career, even though the follower count doesn't reflect the engagement they're getting on an individual basis.
Yeah, exactly.
Thank you so much for your time, for all of your insights. This is incredibly helpful, not only to me, thank you, but to everyone tuning in. For those of you who want one-on-one time with Mallory, you can go to findyournorth.co and look up Mallory. Your last name is Contois, right?
Contois, yeah.
Contois. Okay, I was like, I know it's French, and I know I'm going to butcher it.
No, that was great.
Okay, it's Contois, and she's on there in addition to many other advisors. And if you liked what you got today, imagine that in a much smaller room, much more one-to-one ability through the 10th house. Again, if you're a woman in tech building something, we'd love to welcome you. So please join and take advantage of our special price. Any last words, Mallory, before we wrap?
No, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for having me. And hopefully I'll talk to some of you soon.
I'll talk to you soon when I send you my daughter's website.
Perfect. Please do.
Have a good one, everybody.
All right. Bye-bye.